Sun Essential when I was 15 at Pulse. That was a bit of a baptism of fire. But then I had to start picking up the artists from the airport. Then I was fully artist liaison, and I was doing the interviews with the Global Gathering guys, and it was all just through hard work, just kind of getting your head down and kind of showing a little bit of value, I think. Saying, you know what, actually, maybe he's not just the guy that spams message boards, he actually knows what he's talking about. Ended up working in the office with some incredibly talented people, shall we say.
Yeah, what a dream come true, because it was very hard to break into music then.
We had Godskitchen, we had Sun Essential.
It's so much.
Polystation,
yeah.
We had Passion. You know, you could go to Progress in Derby, you could go to Renaissance in Nottingham, you could go to Gay Crash in Sheffield, you could go to Cream in Liverpool.
We were so spoiled, weren't we? DJs would have 3 or 4 gigs, and they could just en route pop in.
Yes.
So going from Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, whatever,
Yes.
pop in, boom, 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 boom. The Passions and things like that
Yep.
were always very well positioned.
Yep.
But those, like Colville and places like that, the most random of places, really good scene. Steve, thank you very much for joining me today on this podcast. I had to, especially after the Godskitchen resurrection is going on, and you are playing with us in Birmingham.
Yes.
That's in May. Well, where is this year gone?
Don't ask me to bring up dates.
I'm not going to even go into dates. Nick is forever having a go at me going, you do realise the post you put out has got the wrong date on. And I'm like, So yeah, I'm terrible for that as well. I've got a mind of a goldfish. So yeah, we've obviously got Godskitchen has come back.
Yes.
And we just announced Australia.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, the Godskitchen was always a big stronghold, and there's a lot more to come for Gods for people who are tuning in. Nick's really got a good hold of it now, and the Birmingham shows are looking great. Ibiza was just magical last year. It was literally like taking a step back in time. So where are you from? You must be from Birmingham.
Close.
Okay.
I like to consider myself an honorary Brummie because most of my friends are from Birmingham. But I actually grew up in a place called Coventry, which is about 30 minutes away.
It's a Lisa Lash's sort of
exactly,
area.
Yes. Exactly the same city, yes.
It keeps on coming up in conversation.
Lisa and I, and I believe Fergie may have spent a little time around our area as well.
There's a few of you down there. Yeah, definitely.
And also it was the home of a legendary club called the Eclipse, which was the first all-night licensed rave club after the illegal raves, where I believe the Prodigy might have played their first ever live gig. Cole Cox for sure played there, and I believe Godskitchen spent a little time there as well.
Stephen Holm, and I think he mentioned it. I know Rob Tazera must have mentioned it, but I remember having to dig out pictures of the Eclipse for previous podcasts. So that's been brought up a few times.
Yeah, very legendary.
It's got a lot to answer for.
I mean, I am 42, so I'm not young, but it was still a little before my time. I did get to play there later on once it had changed to another. It got closed down for many years and then reopened, etc. But I did get to play there many years later. But yes, Coventry, not only are we the absolute centre of the country, we did once upon a time have a dance scene. We don't anymore, which is why we go to Birmingham, which is probably how this conversation comes around. But no, Coventry for my sins, unfortunately.
I mean, Coventry was a good area because back in the day, DJs would have 3 or 4 gigs and they could just en route pop in to Coventry.
Yes.
Going from Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, whatever, pop in, boom, 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 boom. The Passions and things like that were always very well positioned because they on their drive back, they could come in for an hour. And it would be an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is. So yeah, those like Colville and places like that, the most random of places, really good scene, and it was purely because of the geographical and the motorways just aligned.
That's it. I mean, literally, Coventry is where pretty much the M6 and the M1 align. So if you're going, northwest, you got Manchester, Liverpool, etc. You got the M6. If you're going Yorkshire or the East Midlands, you've got the M1. So Coventry was literally, and obviously Birmingham's not too far from that either. You've got the M42 that joins the two. But yeah, no, you're absolutely dead right. That's the beauty. One of the many beauties of the Midlands, shall I say. It's
yeah. I was never a Midlands raver. I will admit that. I was very, very, very London based, and then straight to Ibiza for many, many years, and then over to Croatia. So I didn't really. I did go to Rainbow at Birmingham, God's a couple of times, but I was always very much very in central London.
I think with London, you always had everything on your doorstep, though, didn't you? That's the thing. That was the beauty of it. And I kind of missed out on a few things in London, albeit I'm a big fan of Fabric and places like that now. But when I was younger and we were going out every week, we didn't really have a need to go to London because, like you said, we had God's Kitchen, we had Sunday Central,
it's so much.
Polystation, where we had Passion. You know, you could go to Progress in Derby, you could go to Renaissance in Nottingham, you could go to Gatecrash in Sheffield, you could go to Cream in Liverpool.
We were so spoiled, weren't we?
Yes,
spoiled,
very
spoiled,
much so. But you could just jump on a tube for half an hour and end up anywhere.
I could get 12 minutes on the train, tube there, and it's just, and then on the way back, same thing. The amount of times we used to fall asleep on the train and end up in the middle of nowhere in Surrey and things like that. Well, I didn't. I know my ex used to all the time. Before I met her, she said she used to end up at the other end of the line, you know, in the middle of Surrey in the outback somewhere.
Little tap on the shoulder
several times. yeah, but this is when like it was like the it wasn't the 6 a.m. parties. She was going home after the day parties. She used to do nighttime, then the day.
Yes.
And then finish at the day and be thoroughly exhausted, and then just conk out. So the Sunday afternoon sometime and trying to get back. So how did you get into the musical world?
Do you know what? Through my sister, and I will give her.
Your sister?
Yeah, who I'm still super close with now. Most anyone that will be watching this will have probably met her at some point, but she introduced me. I say she introduced me. She was a little bit older than me, so she started to go to university. And I used to steal her CDs, basically. Oh, tapes. In fact, tapes. We're going back to tape days. Yeah. Sorry, my apologies. We're going back to tape days. And she started taking me out to clubs. I went to Sunday Central when I was 15, for example.
Yeah, you could do it then, couldn't you?
But in terms of, do you mean the DJing side of things or just the music in general?
I was just about to ask you about the music. Now, the next question was going to be, how did it then?
Yeah, I mean, so the music, the clubbing side of things, my sister started taking me. We hated each other growing up, by the way. But then when she moved out, went to university, she went to UCE in Birmingham. She started finding places like God's Kitchen, Miss Moneypenny's, Baker's, all the ones you think of, and then I don't know what changed, to be honest, but we started actually getting on. Maybe I was just maturing a little bit, and
you weren't doing a wedding.
That's probably exactly what it was. Yeah,
I've got kids at the moment, and the middle child is absolutely doing the older child's heading.
Yeah,
they love each other, but I can see how much he's winding him up.
Yeah,
and he doesn't mean to. He's just annoying. He just wants to be like him,
Yeah,
I get that, and I think that phase will pass.
Yeah, no, for sure. And at the minute, she kind of come out, and I mean, I won't dive into too much of this, but yeah, I mean, maybe I was doing some stuff that I was getting involved with a side of the world that maybe shouldn't have been, as you do as a teenager. And
we all did. Don't worry about that.
Particularly if you grew up,
well, some of us did anyway.
Yeah, particularly if you grew up in Coventry, I was maybe getting involved with things I shouldn't have been. But my sister, for whatever reason, decided, she was like, and the thing is, back in what I think we'll probably touch on this a little bit more later on, but the world has changed so much. It seems so strange now to say a 15-year-old went to a nightclub or a 16-year-old. But underage drinking, underage, and all that sort of stuff was a little bit different back then. Now, I'm not advocating that at all, of course, but it's a lot more strict these days than it was then. But she essentially went to these clubs and said, a lot of these people look quite young, and I always looked a little bit older. I did actually have hair back then, but but it was probably even receding by 16. But yeah, no, she started taking me. She took me to Sunday Central when I was 15 at Pulse. That was a bit of a baptism of fire because I had no idea about nothing. I didn't know anything. And then I went to God's Kitchen shortly after that. I think I just turned 16, and then it kind of carried on from there. And then the DJing thing ties into that pretty quickly after.
It's mad that you bring up the younger ravers, because I remember, I'm not going to bring up their names, but they know who they are from Strawberry Sundays. They were very, very, very young.
You said the after parties in London, I was thinking there's definitely one called Strawberry something. I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah, yes, I was there a lot. That was my home. But I remember a couple of young ladies who were very, 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 very young. And they were there all the time. And they've grown up to be fine individuals, which I'm glad to see.
Yes.
But yeah, it was a lot easier then. Nowadays, there's no chance.
No, not
at
at
that
all.
age you could have got in to anything. But the shit that went on in the clubs back then, you couldn't do that nowadays anyway, could you?
It was, yeah.
I don't think they'd have a license for long.
A lot of things were very, very different back then. Good times for sure.
So when did you first get when did you first get on the set of decks then?
It's quite funny. So I didn't have any friends that were DJs at all. I would have been, I'm guessing 16, maybe even 15, because I was definitely still at school. I was definitely still in year 11 at school. And I was watching, I think it was like Ibiza Uncovered or something like that, or Club-O-Vision, or it was one of those programs that was on every week. You remember those programs about clubbing in Ibiza and all that sort of stuff. And my nan, bless her, she'd passed away not long before, and she'd left me a little bit of money. She didn't have much money, but she'd left me a few £100 to put in a building society account. The idea was that it would stay there for the rest of my life and just save it, savings, etc. I was like, do you know what? No, I want to be a DJ. So I went to literally the next week. I went to I think it was like it was either Maplin. I think it was Maplin Electronics. I think it was Richard Sounds. I think it was Maplin Electronics. And
oh my God, Richard Sounds.
Yeah.
God. They're everywhere, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah. But I think I went to
what place?
Incredible if you want to buy speakers and stereos and all that sort of stuff.
Mate, there's one in Croydon. I was there like every week. I just love going in there to see what they had.
Yeah. I could never afford anything in there, but Maplin Electronics. Yeah, I went into one in Coventry, and they had this all-in-one DJ unit. My hands aren't. But this all-in-one DJ unit. I said not all-in-one. It was two belt drive sound lab decks.
Yeah.
Really, really rubbish ones though. They were like they had like two separate pitches that were horizontal. One was
I know exactly the ones you mean.
Plus 3, -3. One was for 30, 45, and then a little rubbish 2-channel mixer. No EQs or anything like that. So, and then I went out and bought on the same day I bought and they all come in a big box where I should carry home on a bus. And I went to a shop and bought my first 4 vinyls. And then I was that clueless. I didn't even realize that I had to buy speakers. And I got home and I was like, why can't I hear the music through my headphones? Because I guess it come from with these really rubbish headphones as well. And I was like, what? And then I think my sister's boyfriend at the time was like, you haven't got any speakers. Like, where's this supposed to?
Or an amp.
Like, he's looking at me like I'm an idiot.
Or an amp or anything.
No, nothing. Yeah. I literally had nothing. And I was like, well, that makes sense. And then spent a few months sort of messing around. By that point, I found the cables. I had a stereo in my room, and then I just playing it out of that.
Yeah.
But then I remember, like I said, I didn't have any friends that were DJs or anything. I was just really confused. Like, I could hear that obviously the pitch would speed things up and slow things down. And I remember I had a real epiphany one night before school. I was lying in bed and I was like, I wonder if these pitch things are to make the 2 records the same speed so I can actually mix them together. And I was so excited. And I woke up the next morning and tried it. Obviously, I was pretty rubbish, but obviously I could see it made sense. And I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's how you're supposed to mix records. So that was the complete epiphany. But yeah.
I remember the feeling.
But I didn't have
it just goes like that, doesn't it? Like, oh my God, that's how you do it.
Honestly, it was, my mom went absolutely mental in the morning because there's me at like, 7 o'clock in the morning when she's trying to get ready for work. And I'm like, no, I'm putting my decks on. I want to see if this is correct. But yeah, that was the early journey, I feel like. That's how, but it literally all came from watching, I can't remember if it was Club-O-Vision or Ibiza Uncovered. It was something like that. I was literally lying on the sofa and I was like, I want to go and buy some decks.
Yeah, the good old days. Yeah, I've got a lot. We've got a lot to thank for Clubbervision, because looking back now, them and a couple of other channels, mainly Clubbervision,
Yeah.
really, they were the historians of the scene.
Yeah, I mean,
If
even
you
things
want
like
to,
Rapture TV, which came a little bit later,
as well as
that was
yeah,
incredible. I mean, that came, a couple of years later, but yeah, I mean, granted, Ibiza Uncovered and stuff like that didn't paint Ibiza in the best light at all.
no, and it didn't do it any favors at all. And I still think because of that, the government in Ibiza is very prickly about TV programs, because they always say they're going to come over and paint Ibiza in its wonderful light, and
straight
it
to the West
doesn't.
End, and
Yeah,
so there's so much.
yeah, and the final edit is just horrendous. I'm not sure if there's been a decent show over there. I think
No,
there was one called Ibiza. Was it just called Ibiza? But showed some of the workers actually in a fairly positive light. But still, I think it was a bit edgy, you know.
I think from their perspective, I suppose they have to show what they perceive the general public to want to see, which is your average person that's watching BBC or whatever it was on. Obviously, we were slightly different to that. We want to see the underground, we want to see the clubs and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, trying to explain to my friends, like, look, no, the West End is not Ibiza. They were like, no, but that's all we see on TV. I was like, trust me, there's way more to Ibiza than the West End.
Yeah. So when did God's Kitchen come into your life?
Yeah, so 16. It would have been. So I had the inaugural visit to Sun Essential, if you like. I was definitely 15 then. I think not long after that, we went to. I would have probably just turned 16. It was a long time ago, so you have to forgive me. But
Yeah.
when it was at the Sanctuary, which was when God's Kitchen used to be on Fridays, you see.
Yeah.
I was at the Sanctuary, which then became the Institute later on. This was before the Code days, and we went there. And do you know what? I actually do remember this particular night relatively vividly, because it was, if you remember back in those days, they didn't have the all-night licenses. So clubs were not allowed to open until 6 o'clock. I think the only clubs that were allowed to open until 6 o'clock was London. I think Ministry of Sound had a late-night license.
Yeah.
I think Gatecrash.
And Passion got one.
Well, Passion was always 9 till 3 at this point.
And then I think they got allowed, passed the law to go to 7. When I spoke to JFK not too long ago, but still, yes, you're right.
Yeah,
they only had 3 o'clock, but I think they granted it to 6, 7 because they didn't want people kicking out in the middle of the night.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I remember the days. London was easy; you could do anything you wanted.
Oh no, London was always a bit of a London's clubbing wise. Even when I used to work as a promoter with Ancient Music Group, we always consider London as almost like a completely different country. But yeah, anyway, so God's Kitchen, but once a month they would have these all-night parties, where they call all-nighters, which would go until 6 a.m. rather than the 4 a.m. I think it normally was. And I forget the full lineup, but Tall Paul definitely played, Seb Fontaine definitely played. I think Scott Bond might have played, but it was at the Sanctuary. And that was my first foray, if you like, into, well, it was two completely different vibes to Sun Central. One, it was a completely different style of music, because obviously God's Kitchen was always it would start off house music early on and then meander into trance music as it went on. And then obviously, and then it would, back in the Tony V days, it would, end in hard house and all that sort of stuff. Whereas, Sun Essential was just straight up hard house. It would get harder as the night would go on.
Banging.
Also, the Pulse venue was a very low ceiling. It was one level, very much a low ceiling sort of venue, whereas the Sanctuary or the Institute was the very grand, the big huge main room and the big pipes behind the DJ booth and the big stage and all the theatrics and stuff. And I was like, oh my,
it's a theatre, isn't it?
Well, absolutely, yeah. And that was just a completely different experience. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible.
So I know you've got a love for, was it Code or Air? Which is your favourite?
Out of the no, Code was way better than Air. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I think I saw. I posted on the other day, didn't I, about Air on God's Kitchen? I remember, and you wrote Code or something. I can't remember.
Oh, no, you think you must your favourite venues in order or something like that. Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Sure.
Everyone's got a bit of love for Code. I know everybody loves Sanctuary, but Code is definitely up there with the with the popular nights.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I've been quite fortunate in that I've kind of transcended a couple. I think it's generational, to be honest. I've been quite fortunate that I have transcended maybe a few of the generations there. Granted, I came in at the back end of the sanctuary, if you like. You know, people that had been there for a few years would say, "Well, you didn't see the best of it." Oh, yeah, whatever, that's fine. Obviously, I experienced Code. That was only a couple of years, but when Code was on, Godskitchen would do parties at the Q Club, which is still to this day I fully think is top 3 venues I've ever been to in my life ever. But they were like once a quarter, and this was when clubbing was weekly. And then I guess 2003 Air came along, and look, Air was a great venue. I think it just unfortunately just wasn't as good as its predecessors, but if the current generation of clubbers, if you like, are people that only ever experienced Air, and they had fantastic times there, and I had fantastic times there. I was asked to put them in a list, and unfortunately Air was at the bottom. That was all it was. Yeah. So sorry if I offended anybody. I do apologise.
No, I don't think. Do you know what? I don't think. I mean, you are right. People's love for music is age, because every time we hear it was better in this era, better in that era, and I heard people saying, well, it was better in the early 90s, and well, sorry if I was 14 then, you know, you can't really have them. But luckily, I'm that age where I've been able to see the evolution of rave, all the way through to where I am now in Croatia, with the corporate aspect of it. So I've been through that. London, Ibiza, Croatia, all different genres, and everyone says that it was better. It was better then. Now, but there's still great times to be had.
No, I know, and this is something I always say to people as well, that have maybe sort of transcended through generations. And I say, look, what you have to remember is that like times have just moved on. Maybe you've got a little bit older, or maybe you've started having children, maybe you're not going out as much anymore, or, whatever. So you just have to remember you're just on the flip side. Like when so if I take the late 90s for me, example, when I started going clubbing, the people that were clubbing in the early 90s were saying that the super clubs were ruining what they had. And then if you go to the late 2000s, those guys, the people that were involved in the early 2000s were saying that the late 2000s guys were ruining what they had. It's just a conveyor belt. Everything is different. I mean, one of my best friends has got a son. He's 18. He DJs drum and bass, and he's having an amazing time. He's playing at incredible gigs, and you look at those videos and you realise that actually, as much as I've come away from it a little bit, that is still going on. We're just not part of it
Especially
anymore.
the drum and bass is strong.
Yeah,
huge. In the UK. Yeah, I mean, it's just the staple UK music, isn't it? That's why I see it such a UK sound.
Oh, it is.
And some of the raves, I used to love mixing it as well back in the early days. My friend was very much into drum and bass and jungle and stuff, and I loved it. I still do. Still play it in my car. Still got a stupid sound system in my car.
Oh, have you?
Drop the bass, Oh, yeah. I've got 2 10s.
The subwoofer in the boot.
2 10s, yeah, 2 10 Kenwoods. I don't think I've ever shown a photo of it in the podcast, and I've got 2K. It's all about 15 years old, but it was made to fucking last back then. And it still rumbles. The people in my village were like, who the fuck is this English guy?
Like,
it's just like, yeah, I've still got it. I still use it. And funny enough, I find it very helpful for when I'm listening to new mixes and new music.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I still get those tunes, the new tunes that are coming out, that will give me goosebumps, and because I'm getting that entire experience through the cars are shaking, and it's a really good test bed for music, which is a weird thing. So yeah, any excuse to turn that bugger on, unless it's going to fucking burn the car one day, because it's getting old a bit, and the fuses have melted a few times.
No, it's not strange at all. It's always been called the car test. I mean, to do with when I used to do a new mix CD every week. And then I'm not a producer at all, but I have had tracks released. I get creative every now and again and go to a studio and use an engineer But yeah, I mean, you always have the car test, whether that's coming back from the studio and you put it.
Right.
You put it in the car, and then, or if you've done a new mix CD, what does it listen to? Because it's different to listening to it in your headphones.
It does sound differently, doesn't it?
Yeah. 100%.
No, I was going on about the there's an argument between you can't be a producer if you're using an engineer, and I find that you get a lot of that stigma. And I've spoken to so many engineers on this podcast, and they're like, what's a load of shit? Yeah, if there's creative influence from the artist, it's their tune, it's a cooperation. A ghostwritten tune is something completely different, you know?
Yes, exactly. You just
make completely different kettle of fish.
No, I mean, and every producer, I mean, most big DJs in the world will use an engineer in some capacity.
Absolutely.
Some of the biggest and most of the biggest classics, even going back to the 90s, were written by somebody else. I won't name them because I don't want to cause a load of havoc, but you could probably name them, and they're probably, majority of it was written by an engineer, and the other person had some input into it. That was basically
I mean, if you want to squeeze the last, when I spoke to Steve Mack, he's there to squeeze the last 20% out of that tune.
Oh, 100%, that's it, yeah.
And that's the difference they make. And Lange, when I speak to Lange, you know, he takes on advice about new tunes. He's taken a lot of advice from Jules.
Yeah.
If Jules would road test something at a club, because he wasn't a DJ at the time, then he would speak to Lange and goes, that build-up needs to be longer. It needs to be this, or this needs to be this. And that feedback would go back to Stuart, and Stuart would then redo it and then play it. And then he'd release another Lange classic, you know? Yeah. So... Yeah, it's really interesting.
I think that used to happen quite a lot back in the day. I mean, even going back to the days of acetates and stuff like that, in the vinyl days, obviously it costs a lot more money to print vinyl and stuff, but DJs would have longer sets. They would get the opportunity to say, look, let me test this out, and then they'd be able to go back. It's a little bit different now. I think it's a little bit, you know,
just a little bit, yeah. How did you? Obviously, I think you learning on equipment like that, there's no better way to learn, you know, on belt driven, where you've got to learn that how to beat match, and you've got to learn how to keep those tunes in. What you are literally diving into the deepest part of mixing, aren't you? It was difficult. So you learned your trade on those. Then where did you go?
I mean, so the Sound Lab, the belt drive guys. And then I moved to direct drive, but they weren't Technics. I didn't have much money, I'll be honest. I couldn't.
They were quite expensive.
I couldn't afford Technics. My parents couldn't afford Technics. You know, bless them. Obviously at that age, generally they're sort of having me out Christmas presents and stuff like that. But no, got a set of direct drives, which I forget. Honestly, I can't remember. They weren't very good. But the difference was immediate. I was like, oh, this is crazy. I almost had to learn how to mix completely again. I was like, this makes no sense. Because obviously by that, when I was playing on belt drive decks, I wasn't DJing. Well, actually, there is a lie. My first ever gig out was actually in Ibiza in the West End, which is quite funny. But that would have been when I had the belt drive deck. But so I got these direct drive, and then after that, I got the Technics. I used to spend...
had to relearn again.
Yeah, but you know, what was funny was but by that point, by the time I got direct drive decks, I would have been, I don't know, 18, 19 maybe. And by that point, I was going out clubbing every week, and I'd made friends that had decks at home, and some of them had Technics decks, and I was like, and I remember coming home thinking all the time, I was like, why is it so much easier to mix at their house than it is at mine? And then I realised, obviously, it was the decks. Like, I just thought the direct drive was the difference, but actually it was the Technics thing, which was the difference. And ended up getting some direct drive decks. Some Technics decks. And by that point, I was playing out sort of semi-regularly, had some local residencies where you'd make friends with the other local residents, and you'd inevitably go back to their houses after clubs and things, and you'd be on the decks. And it genuinely was an obsession. Like like every night, like almost every waking moment, if I was at home, I'd be on the decks. or even if I was at my friend's house, it was.
I think it's all we ever did.
I think it has to be. I think it really does have to be.
It's all we ever did was come around for a mix and a smoke.
100%.
Absolutely,
yes.
That's all we ever did. Yeah. All we ever did, and it was it was more of a community thing and just chilling out. It was never serious. It was just like, this is what we did. We didn't sit there and be on Facebook. We were sitting there having a mix, smoking a joint. That's what I was with my friends. And forever bollocking them for dropping solid fucking blims on my records. Oh, yeah. Fucking, I couldn't. Some of my best records. There's always one person that used to do it as well. You know who he is. So when did you have an idea that you really wanted to start playing out seriously and getting involved in the music industry seriously? When did that come to you?
In terms of playing out, I mean, I suppose the minute I started playing to friends and stuff, started putting on a few parties and things like that. Local to me, there was a guy called Paul Morell, actually. I don't know if you know Paul.
Paul Morell, yeah. I think, is he on the Gods lineup?
He's just been added.
Yes, he has.
Just been added.
That's right.
Yeah, so Paul was my best friend's older brother's best friend. So Paul used to book Tony DeVee to play in Coventry. Oof, so Paul's a little older than me, and Paul and he used to play at a lot of the local clubs, and I was fully nerding out on DJing at this point, and I started putting on events myself and things like that. And then I got a residency at a club. It was an after-hours club. This is again going back to when clubs would finish at. So the local clubs in Coventry would finish at 2 a.m. The big clubs like Godskitchen or whatever would finish at 4 a.m. But there was an after-hours club in Coventry called Fidget, attached to the train station, in fact, which used to open at 2 a.m. and go on till 9 a.m. And I met the promoter there at a house party. Again, very similar to what you said. You just communal thing. People come around, have a few drinks, whatever. There's a set of decks there. Bring your vinyls round. We'll do 15 minutes each, or 2 on, 2 off, or whatever it was. It was a communal thing. And I'd never met them before, and I got chatting to this guy, it turns out. But I'd seen his flyers in, I think it was Virgin Megastore or HMV store. You know, back when you actually had actual flyers.
On the counters.
And I was thinking, wow, there's a club that's on from 2 a.m. till 9 a.m. That's crazy. So I got a residency there. Well, I played there a couple of times, got friends with him, and then eventually that turned into a residency. That was a hard house club, because I was playing hard house at the time. And then through that, I met a guy called Danny, and he already had the radio show, and then I became a co-presenter of it. So basically, myself and my friend Danny already had the radio show. It was in Wolverhampton at Wolverhampton College. It was a BBC studio. It's where they do BBC Wolverhampton, but they had 2 or 3 studios. The main BBC Wolverhampton studio was one, and we had the other. When they kind of recycled the studios, we would get the old one, if you like. So the one that we would go, it was the 4 big mixing soundboard, the 4 big microphones, the whole decks in the corner, all that sort of stuff. We'd have to stop for traffic updates and news and all that sort of stuff. But that was every Friday. I think it was 7 till 9. It was called Clubbed Up. So we used to do that, and then this is way before Facebook, and this is you're talking 2002 to the Don't Stay In days, if you remember Don't Stay In.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Yeah. And we would essentially the first hour we would have some music, we'd have sort of pre-planned, but we would talk in between, say what gigs are going on around the country and all this. So basically, we were mimicking people like Pete Tong. Like on a Friday night, Pete Tong's radio show on Radio 1, he'd be like, there's this going on at the gallery, etc. And then the final hour would have a guest mix, which at that time when we started was just people that had sent CDs in and stuff like that. So we kind of had a conversation and said, look, how do we kind of progress this? We've got a really, really good platform here. What do we do about this? In terms of how do we get a better reach? There was no SoundCloud, there was no Facebook, there was no nothing. So we started approaching promoters, whether it was Sunday Central, like I said, at the time we were playing hard house music. So it was Sunday Central, it was Polysexual, which ties into what you were talking about, Storm, places like that. And what we would say is we would invite the promoters into the studio to come and do an on-air interview. We would invite people to sort of call in and things like that, all that sort of stuff. But the final hour, we'd say, look, if you bring your resident DJ, he can do a live mix in the studio. But if you tell us about your future gigs, we'll promote them all across all Don't Stay In and Harder Faster and all these forums. We've got a 15,000 database. We'll email all people out and all that sort of stuff. Just give us a gig, and that was basically how we started getting gigs. And
awesome.
We ended up hosting arenas. We then turned that into an agency. We had people like Sam Townend, who now basically runs Tidy. He was one of our first guys, a part of our agency. We weren't charging people money. It was just it was a clubbed up thing. We hosted arenas at Tidy Weekender, Sun Essential, Storm, stuff like that. We did a really good job out of it. But around that time, I was due to go to Ibiza, actually, funnily enough, to do a summer in 2008. I'd done a summer in 2002 and then meandered around, but I was 18 at that point. I did what you do as an 18-year-old.
Good year. It was a good year, that, in Ibiza.
I mean, I didn't go. I mean, I had a good time, but going back into
loved it.
The idea of 2008 was, I was like, right, if I'm going to come in 2008, because at this point I was working as a purchase ledger clerk, and I wanted to be an accountant, so I was going to be doing my senior qualification stuff like that. But I was like, but my passion really was music. So this is fast forward into 2007, 2008, and I got a call from a lady called Zaina, who used to work for Angel Music Group. She used to handle all the promotion and stuff. Saying essentially, look, we need somebody to handle all of our online promotion, which at that point was all message boards, stuff like that.
Can you explain first what was Angel Music Group? Because a lot of people won't know what that is.
Well, funny enough, I didn't even know. At this point, I had DJ'd for Polysexual, which was obviously the hard house brand, which is part of the group we all talk about. But at the time, I was aware that there was a brand called Angel Music Group, but I didn't really know anything about it at all until I ended up getting invited to this interview, which we'll talk about in a second. But essentially, Angel Music Group was the company that owned Godskitchen and Polysexual, and also Escaping the Park in Swansea as well, which is one of the other festivals that we ran. Incredible times there, to be fair, and what they did. But I had no idea. Genuinely, at this point, I had no idea. Like, Mark H was the promoter for Polysexual, and he'd recommended me to them and said, look, this guy is pretty good on social media. He's pretty proactive in terms of promotion. If you need somebody, have a chat. So then I got invited into an interview. But the day I got interviewed, so I got invited to the Angel Music Group office, which was in Stratford. Outside, it was in between Henley and Arden and Stratford, in a disused barn. It was where James Allgate lived, to be fair. So I got invited into this interview in, I want to say it was either late 2007 or early 2008. I walk in wearing probably a really, really rubbish suit, which is quite funny because you don't need to wear suits in the music industry, but I didn't know this at the time. And we've Gary Brooks and James Allgate there, who I'm pretty sure you probably know who both of those guys are.
I know exactly who they are.
That was a pretty intimidating experience, should we say. But
did you know who they were?
No.
Did you know? You were just like, never heard of them, no?
No, I didn't know anybody.
So wet behind the ears. That was probably a good thing.
Well, but it was the day they announced Kanye West as the headliner for Global Gathering.
Right.
And the first question, and they were obviously getting a lot of slack for that. Personally, I didn't think it was that bad. My sister took me out to speed garage clubs. I mean, everything. I listened to everything, so I was like, I think, why not? That genuinely was my opinion. Then I walked in there, and they're like, "Yeah, so what do you think?" Because they were getting a lot of grief online, and they were. The first question was, "So what do you think about the announcement?" I was like, "Well, I think it's all right." And they're like, "Okay, fine." Anyway, I'll fast forward a little bit. Essentially, I didn't get the job. I didn't have enough coding experience. There was a bit more they wanted in terms of coding and back end stuff, and I didn't have that. But they kept me on as a part-time employee. I did it from home essentially. But Zaina said, "Look, we need somebody in the office. You're super passionate about what you're doing." By this point, we had meandered or moved, clubbed up from hard house into the more techno realm. So by this point, we were working with people like Fabric and Global Underground, people like that. They were sending us their pre-releases, their albums, things like that as their guest mixes.
Right.
People like Ricardo. But again, this is way before podcasts and stuff like that. There was no SoundCloud. So all these artists, these agents that we would talk to were like, yeah, any sort of exposure would be fantastic. Because now they've all got their own radio show, right? So that's their marketing. But whereas at this point, we were their marketing. So she was like, "Look, you're working really hard. Just email James Allgate and say, look, I know I don't have all the skills you were looking for, but I'm really passionate. I'm really happy to, I just want to learn." And so I did that, and he got me in and ended up working in the office with some incredibly talented people, shall we say.
Yeah, what a dream come true, because it was very hard to break into music then. I mean, I remember I wanted to do it for years, and even when I went to Ibiza, I still wasn't quite where I wanted to be. But yeah, it was because there wasn't as much work then, was there? It was harder, and now obviously everyone wants to work in the music business now, and it's hard going. You got to have a thick skin.
And also back then, everybody didn't have access to everybody either. Everyone's
a black book.
Everyone's got a Facebook account now. Everyone's got a Twitter account or something. You've got a way to contact somebody. Like I said, I'd heard of Angel Music Group, but I didn't know anybody that worked there. I just got recommended because of some work I'd done online through message boards and things like that.
How did your role grow within the company?
So initially, yeah, it was basically I was just a message board spammer. I say spammer, obviously it's an important part of promotion. Sending out e-flyers and things like that. Getting involved with the database, which is where some of my skills originally lacked a little bit. I was the guy in the office that would play music while we were working. My sort of role, I would get involved more and more in conversations. There was only sort of 10 of us there, really. I mean, some of the people that worked in the office were incredible. Look at James Allgate, Gary Brooks, Paul Hugo. I mean, so James Allgate and Gary Brooks and Andrea and with Ed went over to Las Vegas after, and they did the whole Hakkasan thing and all that sort of stuff. And Hugo has been in Bali for a long time. He was very tenured in the industry, and he still runs, I think, one of the most famous clubs in Bali. That might be called Omnia as well. I'm not sure. You're learning from people all the time. But anyway, conversations would come up essentially, and I was trying to prove a point. Like I wanted to, I was there, I was hungry, and I'd get involved with conversation. Then but you'd work at the Godskitchen events. So then I, with Zaina, came up with the idea of launching Godskitchen TV, which some of the episodes are still on YouTube, actually, funny enough, which was going back to the original thing that I told you about before when you talk about the club vision and stuff, where they'd go around the clubs.
Yeah.
So I would interview the DJs, and I would interview some of the clubbers, and then we'd get someone to do some B-roll footage and all that sort of stuff, and we'd put them into promotional videos and we'd put them on the YouTube channels. So that kind of went down well. Then I started looking after the artist on the evening, and that went down quite well. And then I was playing more and more of I would literally every week do a new mix in my bedroom every single week. Because I was like, right, I'm going to do a 6-hour mix at home, and I'm going to play it for 6 hours in the office. Because there was a bit of a blanket rule with the company that essentially if you worked for the company, you couldn't really DJ for them, because what they didn't want was people that worked for the company playing for them because it looked like they were only playing for them because they worked for them, if that made sense. Which
makes complete sense.
Which I completely respected, 100% completely, and I still do. I think it was a good thing. But essentially, every now and again, James Allgate would come out of his office and go, "Oh, what's this? I really like this." And I was like, "It's my mix." And they're like, "Oh, what's this? Oh, it's my mix." So eventually, they come around to the idea of me playing for the organizer. Although I did have to play under a different name for a little while. that's a separate conversation. But yeah, no, then my work within the company, then I had to start picking up the artists from the airport. Then I was fully artist liaison, and excuse me, I was doing the interviews with the Global Gathering guys, and it just kind of it was all just through hard work, but yeah, just kind of getting your head down and kind of showing a little bit of value, I think, and then I suppose respecting where you come from and saying, you know what, actually, maybe he's not just the guy that spams message boards. He actually knows what he's talking about.
Those message boards could be brutal, though, couldn't they?
Yes.
Back in the day, yeah. No, I've heard many a story about dirty laundry being posted on there. Let's get back to the scene, though. Yes. So, how did the Midlands scene compare to like Leeds or Manchester or London? You had a spectacular amount of great events up there, didn't you?
Are you talking from a Godskitchen perspective or from my perspective?
From just a clubber's perspective.
Yeah. I mean, London was always a place I always looked at. I mean, you'd be reading Mix Mag every week going, oh my God, there's something on, like, you could go out on a Wednesday night and come back on a Tuesday morning. Do you know what I mean? We didn't quite have that in Birmingham or the Midlands, but the Midlands scene, I mean, Birmingham especially, had an incredible scene. You had obviously Godskitchen, but one of the other brands they had under the Angel Music Group banner was Babushka. But then also at Code they used to run I can't remember if it was like bi-weekly but Steve Lawler used to run a progressive house night called Midweek Sessions. That was on like a Wednesday or a Thursday. Yeah, Danny Sinaglia there, Slasher, John Digweed.
In the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Crazy time.
Yeah, exactly. But then also I used to go to techno parties. So you had things like Atomic Jam and stuff like that in Birmingham. But then obviously Passion was only 40 minutes down the road. But then also Storm was also 40 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
We didn't really venture. I mean, because we had so much of that on our doorstep, we didn't really need to venture too much up north.
You didn't experience it as such.
No,
well.
I mean, we did.
Same as me.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you didn't need to come out of London. So we did go to Gatecrasher a couple of times. Had incredible times at Gatecrasher at the Republic. Went to Cream at Nation once. To see Sasha's comeback party. That was incredible. We did used to go to the Southern Central North parties at Evolution in Leeds on bank holidays. They were interesting events, shall we say?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know too much about them or not. I don't know.
I know a lot about those because obviously I've been speaking a lot with Madders.
Of course.
I speak. I haven't just done 2 interviews with Madders. I actually spoken to him a lot. I speak to him a lot on the phone. Yeah, and we've become quite close because we've got a similar journey. I've been involved heavily with addiction and stuff like that, and so has he. And I've been clean for many years, and he's been clean exactly the same time as me. And but we've from our very first phone call we just connected. It's really nice now because I get to send him. He obviously doesn't go on social media.
Of course.
It's not his thing.
Yeah.
But I've been sending him all the old flyers from Sunday Central.
Yeah.
That he hasn't seen in 20 years. And he's just like, oh my God. He's just like, wow. It just brings it all back to him because a lot of those days are very dark as well for him.
I'd imagine so. Yeah.
So, but when I send the flyers over at a particular event, it's just like the joyous times.
I remember that.
Through.
Yeah,
because you remember you brought up polysexual a couple of times because I actually found a flyer yesterday. Madders presents polysexual.
Yeah. Well, Madders come in a little bit later on. That was after he'd left Sunday Central.
How was that? I didn't know the 2 were connected.
No,
because I knew polysexual was God's, and polysexual. I put a post up on the Godskitchen page a couple of days ago because it keeps on coming up in conversation, and it is super popular. And obviously, the harder sound is now coming back. Has been back for a while.
Hannah Lang and people like that. It's crazy what they're doing. Do you know what? Even going back in the early days of Global Gathering, going back to like 2002, 2003, of all the arenas, I would always go around all the arenas because all my friends were just into hard house, but I liked the progressive house, the techno, the trance music, stuff like that. So I was like, well, as long as we've got a point, I'll come and meet you back here. The one arena that always filled up first was always, well, it was the Sun Central Arena initially, but then it became the Polysexual Arena. But it was always the hard house arena, always. Absolutely, every single time.
Yeah,
every single time.
It's definitely back. I mean, there's some great stuff being produced.
Spoke to Paul Glasby recently as well.
I did two podcasts with him. He's back. He's producing again.
I know.
After 13 years, his podcasts have been popular, and it's an exciting time for music because I've always said that music goes in circles where it goes slow and then the BPM goes up and up and up and up and up, and now you've got this hard dance going on, and you've got this shit going on in Central Europe, which is Europe on the continent. Hard dance, this with a funny dance.
Yeah, they're calling it hard. It's more like hard style, isn't it? Let's be fair.
Yeah, hard style, and then it will probably get to that point where it will slow down again, and we'll in a couple of years we'll see minimal again. So I'm a big believer of the circle of BPM.
Oh, no, I completely agree. That sort of mid 2000s minimal explosion happened in Ibiza, especially. People forget.
I loved it. I was at DC10 every Monday.
But people forget that minimal was around way before that. That wasn't the first minimal. That was kind of the second. That was the rebirth of minimal. But it was our generation's first viewing of it, if you like. Yeah,
when I went to DC10 that first time and saw what the Italians were bringing over, and it was really. You couldn't name a tune. You hadn't heard any of those tunes ever before. And it was just like, what is this they're playing? And you had like Luciano Loco Dice.
Yeah.
All of the big. This is before Jamie Jones and all that lot.
Oh yeah,
Clive Henry and Joe Mills and
Tanya Vulcano.
Tanya Vulcano, Carl Cox. Timo Mass, all that lot, and it was just like a who's who of DJ.
It's funny actually because there's 2 points there. One, Timo Mass is a great example, but so our experience of DC10 at that point was when what we would call the DC10 terrace as the actual terrace, but it still had a cover over. When Timo Mass started playing there, that was the actual outdoor terrace. But it's the same with Space, though, right? You think of the journey that Space had through Ibiza. I mean, I went there when it was actually, there was only 2 rooms. You had the outside room and the inside room, and then it completely changed. And then it was all completely different. But yeah, that whole minimal explosion, I remember the sitting down with Luciano and yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I actually...
Bleeps and blobs, wasn't it? Beep, boop, boop. That's what I used to call it.
I went to Fabric and Swords, see Richie Horton, I saw Magda, and she played an incredible minimal set. And that's when Minus were doing their old minimal thing. So, no, I'm pretty open to all sorts of music. But no, you are completely right. Music goes in full cycles. Goes up BPM.
I've gone right back into hard house. How mad is that? After 20 odd years, I am banging to my hard house. Tony DeVitt was always a huge inspiration to me musically, and I'm listening to more of his stuff than... It's like I've gone back 25 years. And I think that's with the people that I'm working with musically as well, are playing that sound. But as I said to you, we're experiencing gigs where the hard house is the busier of the room compared to the trance. So yeah, polysexual. We were talking about that.
Yes.
That was obviously associated with Godskitchen. But I did find a flyer yesterday with Madder's name on, so there was a crossover, and Sunday Central versus Polysexual. Right. So they were somehow linked.
So I actually went to one of the first polysexual parties. This is why I was saying I wish I had my wallet on me, because I've still got it now. It's when I know, and this is why I know I was only 16.
Just send me a photo of it, and I'll put it over.
I will for sure.
The edit.
It's laminated. So polysexual, when it first started at Code, was a Sunday daytime party, midday till 10 p.m. or 2 p.m. till midnight or something like that.
Yeah. But that's sunny side up.
Yeah. And we used to go there on a Sunday, but you had to be obviously over 18. I was 16 at the time, but I just basically faked my date of birth. So I've got a polysexual, but you have to be a member. So I've got a polysexual membership card, which I still have here somewhere. But it has my fake date of birth on it, which made me 18 at the time. Which, funny enough, when I went to America when I was 19, made me 21. So I actually got into bars, but that's a different story altogether. But yeah, but that I don't know. I have absolutely no idea who was running polysexual at that time. And then when did Madders come into? Because he left Sun Sanctuary, and you are right, he did come into polysexual at some point. But it was before I worked there. It was when I was DJing there rather than when I worked there.
It must have been Madders' latter days in dance music.
Yeah, but you know what he did, and you know what, and this is when you said you'd seen a couple of comments online and stuff like that. It's probably things like Mashtonbury and stuff like that. He started doing the bank holiday parties at Air for polysexual, and it was sort of daytime into nighttime, but he'd like put like fairground rides in the car park and all this sort of stuff. It was stuff that he used to do at Sun Essential, but he brought it over to Polly's. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely pre-2008 because that never happened.
Yeah. I'm actually speaking to him tomorrow, so
there
I'm
you go.
going to pick his brains a little
for sure.
bit.
I mean, if you ask me about Mashtonbury, it was definitely his idea.
Mashtonbury. Yeah, he would have made up that. That's just such as a Madders name, you know.
It's definitely a Madders thing, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I've been looking into polysexual quite a lot because it has just keep on popping up all the time. And then I was speaking with Madders, and I just said Madders polysexual, and I was like, oh. So, but yeah, I'm speaking to him tomorrow, so I'm going to pick his brains a little bit about that. And so, with obviously you were involved in, I would say you're kind of a bit like me. You're in the Angel Group, working marketing media. Back then, how it was done, e-flyers, the community rooms, online chat rooms.
Yes.
So, how do you think social media has changed the scene? Whoa, what a question!
Oh, geez, how has social media changed the scene?
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's been? Okay, let me simplify the question.
I can say, because I could be here for hours.
Do you think it's harder?
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Do you think it's harder to become a DJ in a scene before social media, or do you think it's now easier to be a DJ with social media? I mean, what are your thoughts on social media? And obviously, it's opened social media. Social media's opened up the whole world of DJing to everybody, and the equipment, because it's a piece of piss now.
It's hard to give an honest answer without sounding, I suppose, disparaging to people that are learning now. No. Yeah, no. I mean, look, it's easier now. Every aspect of it is easier now. Let's be honest. Learning to put two records together is easier. You don't really have to really formulate like you basically people. Your audience is a lot easier to play to now because of social media. People's attention span have got a lot shorter, which means they generally just want the big hits, which is something I completely try and avoid. And also, you have literally direct access to everybody involved with every brand that you would like to play for. There is maybe you could argue there's more competition. Because everybody can now DJ, but I think that essentially you've got how you go about things has changed, and how you find your way through an industry has made you change. But ultimately, in the past, like I said, you know, if you look at my journey through Angel Music Group, I didn't know anybody there. Now you can literally just go onto Facebook and you can find every single person that works for any brand, and what you do with that information is up to you. How you contact them and how you market yourself is up to you. But yeah, I think it's a lot easier these days than it used to be.
Okay, and with your career, looking back on your career, what's the moment that's made you most proud within the music industry?
It has to be the first set at Godskitchen. It has to be.
Yeah. When was that?
Well, there's actually quite a cool story behind it. So I started working for Angel Music Group in 2008, April 2008. It was at that point it still seemed pretty impossible to be playing for these sort of brands. And obviously at that point, I was in no position at all to be playing for a brand like Godskitchen at all. We had a New Year's Eve party, New Year's Eve 2008. Damien, our talent booker, it was a classics party. In fact, it was a vinyl classics party, and he called me. Wasn't even in an office. It must have been a couple of days before New Year's Eve, I think. Essentially, he called me and said, "Look, Tall Paul is playing the midnight set. He's supposed to finish at 1. He's got to leave half hour early to go to London because he's playing at the Gallery. Obviously, big affinity with the Gallery. Tall Paul, the Newmans, all that sort of stuff makes sense." So Guy Arnold was supposed to be playing from 1 till, I guess, 2:30, whatever it was. He's going to be late. He's playing in Leeds. So we've got an hour in the main room on New Year's Eve, 12:30 till 1:30. Do you want to fill it? And I was like, I genuinely nearly fell on the floor. Like, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, normally when you play for like a brand that you've idolized since you were 16 years old, that you now work for, which, like you said earlier, literally was a dream come true. Normally you maybe do a backroom gig, or you do a warm-up set, or something to get thrown in on New Year's Eve on vinyl classics at literally 2 days before peak time 12:30 to 1:30 in the main room with my sister. Bless, my sister was there, going back to my relationship with my sister. She was there, and it was a super. I mean, I remember vividly what my first record was. I remember what my last record was. The rest of it is a complete blur. But my sister tells me that apparently it went really well. So
I bet you shit yourself.
Multiple times.
Everyone says it. No matter who they are. I mean, I still speak to people coming off the decks, Amnesia, who hadn't been in the game for 30 years, saying they were genuinely nervous before they went on. And this is 30 years going in. So I bet you had the shakes with your hands on the vinyl. A little bit.
I was, I mean, like I said, I was in no position to be playing at Godskitchen at that point in my career, if you like. So to have that thrown on me. I mean, he must have had trust in me, and it went well. But incredible. Like I said, it's a bit of a blur. Of my sister's filled the gaps. But she said, bless her, she was on the dance floor, and people going, "Who's that?" And like, that's someone on the lineup. Like, who is that? And she's like, "That's my brother." Bless her. So
amazing. What was something to remember that.
Yeah.
And obviously you've kept your connection with Gods.
Yes.
And you'll be coming back at the end of May to play with us. I think that's going to be an incredible occasion. There's a lot of old, I think the Nick's booked kind of everyone. We've had to save some back for Ibiza, which is just a few months after that. So
no, and it had the TMMS thing. We mentioned TMMS earlier in terms of the DC-10 thing. I mean, he's playing in the same room as me, and my favorite CD of all time is by TMMS.
Yeah, I'm a big TMMS fan. Really,
his Dirty Trancing CD on Mixmag.
Yeah, he's I remember seeing him at Circa Loco years and years and years ago, and actually booking him at Godskitchen seems really odd. So what advice would you give anybody trying to break through into the music industry these days, obviously after your journey?
The industry has changed, right? So where I say a lucky break. Excuse my language. Sorry, excuse my language.
You make your luck.
Yeah. I mean, I say a lucky breakthrough, and it did come through genuine hard work. I think things have changed a little bit now, but I do think that the one thing that will never change is that personal touch in terms of just building relationships. Be out there. You for sure utilize social media. That is essentially your business card to the world, like your exposure.
It's your shop window.
It is 100%. It is. It is. That is literally, and that's a conversation John W. Fleming and I had. Something we haven't actually touched on, but when John was essentially my mentor, it was like, look, we were actually talking about something else, but using social media, Facebook, get involved. It used to be message boards back in the day. Get involved with as many conversations as possible, because the more people you make yourself aware to, the more people are more likely to listen to your mixes, things like that you put online. Can I swear on this or not?
Yeah, of course can.
Don't be a dickhead.
Yeah.
There's so many people.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
Yeah,
It's as simple as that.
So, like, look, you don't have. Look, there might be things that go on you don't like. There might be artists playing online which you don't like. If you like, just you don't have to point it out all the time.
Yeah,
The amount of time that people slag off artists on the internet. David Guetta's looking disinterested at Tomorrowland, or fucking, excuse my language, I'm a bit of a potty mouth, but or you know, and like, oh, I can't believe this guy's playing this, or like people complaining this week about David Guetta playing back to back with Carl Cox and stuff like that. So look, all that time and energy you're putting on the internet to be negative about something, right? Imagine if you spent that time there being positive about something, whether that's yourself or whether that's an artist you like, you might actually find that you or the artist you are passionate about does better because you're actually channeling your energy into a more positive light.
thing. Yeah,
like, you don't need to just talk nonsense on the internet and argue with people all the time.
you can have an opinion, but you don't have to voice it. You know, absolutely. I mean, I see things every fucking day, and I'm like, but you know, what the fuck, you know? But I would never dream of saying it on social media. There's absolutely no, because you're, first of all, you're setting yourself up for criticism yourself.
Yeah.
You're making yourself look like a bitter twat, and you literally can just become across as a negative arsehole. And I have literally removed people from my Facebook who are completely bitching about the scene, and I won't work with them ever again.
No,
and I've worked with them before, and it's a shame. But if that negativity, I just think a lot of it is unnecessary. And you just got to learn when to shut your mouth.
No, for sure. Particularly if you want to work professionally in the industry, there's quite a few artists that have come through. I mean, so after Angel Music, I went on to be an agent for like quite a big reputable agency, hence why I was John W. Fleming's agent and all that sort of stuff.
That was about to speak to you about your relationship with John. Actually,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
How did that come about? Because I had a lovely chat with John, and I'll link this podcast to his as well.
Actually, this ties in very well with what you were talking about. So John's obviously got a long affinity with Godskitchen.
Mm-hmm.
He would look at message boards, and Selma and things like that. And I started working for Godskitchen, and I suppose this was the time when I was probably looking after the artist, so being artist liaison, making sure they got their drink, etc. And then we got talking. I mean, I was always a big fan of him as a DJ, but from a professional perspective, he was like, yeah, I see what you write online, and like I feel like you kind of get it, sort of thing. And then we built up a pretty good relationship, and then I got made redundant at Angel Music Group, and then going to a short agency where John W. Fleming was, and then I was his agent. But at the time, he was kind of being my mentor as a DJ. He had me on his Global Trance Grooves, as it was called at the time, podcast. Warmed up for him at Coco, which used to be Camden Palace, things like that. We just had a really good relationship. We have a very similar ethos and mentality around music, and also kind of how to conduct yourself, I think, was kind of the main thing around it. He was like, look, I get it if people have got an opinion, and we've all got an opinion, but you don't need to sit and be negative about things on the internet all the time.
Yeah. He's one person that I really like. His socials are great. Have you obviously
he's a writer. He used to write for DJ Mag, I think.
Oh, did he? But he's just the photos he takes and the positivity, and he picks the gigs that he plays really well. And he will travel all across the world just to get to that right gig.
Yes.
You know, where he knows it's going to be an underground, awesome crowd.
Yes.
I mean, he's always got these beautiful photos of these bizarre shows that he's playing in, like fucking in the middle of a jungle somewhere, hasn't he? Though, you know, he's always got something. Yeah. And Paul Van Dyke, when I was speaking to Paul, he was saying the same thing, that he's like that, you know, because he obviously warms up a lot for.
Yes, John. Well, John and Paul have got a really good relationship. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I love following John on socials. So you worked very closely with him.
I did. Yeah. I mean, I don't work full time in the music industry anymore, and obviously he does. So the time we get to catch up is kind of few and far between these days. But yeah, I got a lot of time. We go to the same hairdresser as well, as you can see.
Yeah.
But no, I took a lot of inspiration from him, particularly back in the early days, go back to Code days and things like that. He was one of the first DJs that really blew me away. But I was 16, 17 at this point. I was like, wow. Because
he'd already been DJing for like almost 20 years probably by then.
Yes, yeah, I know, exactly.
He was resident at Stearns, wasn't he?
He was resident everywhere, man. I mean, he's so respected in the music industry. Like even people like Dave Clark are friends with him, and obviously Dave, big tenor DJ.
He's such a nice guy, though. Like, you said, don't be a dick.
No.
He is just such a lovely guy.
He's the nicest person ever. Nicest person ever.
Absolutely. I'm just going to wrap this up because we're on well over an hour now, and I've got one really important question I need to ask you.
Oh, God.
What one track reminds you of God's Kitchen more than any other?
One.
You'll have to play one or two, maybe. You can actually. Many people bring up several tracks.
Yeah, because there's multiple. Because some would be from a DJ perspective, and some would be from
go on,
clubber perspective.
Go on and hit me with them.
All right. So clubber perspective. And this is going back to Daniel Soto, actually. Shout out to Daniel Soto.
Yeah. One of the originals.
He always used to play a record, which I now utilise every now and again when I can, called by Sono, called Keep Control.
Okay.
I would say Deja Sanctuary for sure.
Oh yeah,
because it's just an iconic God's Kitchen track. And then the last record I ever played at God's Kitchen was Plastic Boy Silver Bath. So that will always. I mean, granted, I'm going to get to play some more records now, but I thought it was going to be the last record I ever played at God's Kitchen.
You have to play all three of them now.
Maybe not in the same set. I'm not sure if that could answer.
No, they're not similar. They're not all similar. Not all similar. But no, thank you very much for your time today. Obviously, I'm going to be seeing you in a couple of months.
Lovely.
Up in Birmingham.
Yes.
And there's going to be a lot of people there. I mean, the tickets are selling well. Well, it's a very, very popular event. I mean, look at the lineup. It's just gigantic. I hate using that word. I sound like a 5-year-old, but it's just it's a juggernaut event. And with all the different venues open, and then it goes back to the sanctuary, and it's just we're very, very excited about it. I mean, Nick's pulled off. I don't think people understand how easy it is to book lineups these days.
I mean,
and to get them all to agree, and to all gel together.
This is a conversation we could have another 3 episodes.
When people say online, why isn't X, Y, and Z on it? Why isn't right, there's several reasons. First, they might be playing in another fucking country on a tour. Second of all, they might not play that sound anymore. Third of all, there might be politics. Fourth, how many reasons do you want to go into it? You can't explain it to people.
Don't even get me started on billing and set times.
Putting up a lineup is so complicated. And to be honest, if it wasn't for Nick's background with 20 years of Cream and things like that, and there's no way we could be pulling this sort of stuff off.
Oh, Nick's quite pragmatic as well in the way the way that he works, and he also understands that people do also have other things to do, and he finds a way to pull it together. And obviously, like you said, it's testament to him, the fact that he's come through Cream, obviously doing Shrine Ibiza now, and obviously God's Kitchen, and they're not the only parties involved in either as well. So
he does so much over the years, and the thing is, he's musically he gets it to flow. I think John actually said that as well.
Yeah,
that because he played for Shine, obviously.
Yeah,
that Nick is one of the bookers, and because sometimes you go to a lineup, a show, and it's all over the place, the artists, and it's just like, what, it's just they throw it. It's like they've thrown it at the wall. But Nick is very, very, that has to flow into that. Okay, that won't fit with that. That won't fit with that. Then you've got, well, the DJs like that lineup. And then you've got to deal with that side of it.
Yeah, I don't think people realise quite how much hard work goes into these.
Anyway, Steve, thank you. You've been great.